Hello and welcome to another fully live Q&A episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Cody Kinsey. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today we have a very special guest expert, the locally renowned best cryptozoology expert within 5 miles, Michael.
Indeed. Hi.
There's a Bigfoot lady who lives just on the edge of town. She's real sharp. But
Yeah.
Michael, aside from her, is one of the best cryptozoology experts. So if you have a cryptozoology related question, please shoot them Michael's way. Now, a lot of people misinterpret this as cryptocurrency or cryptography.
I know a bit about that too.
It has nothing to do with either. He doesn't know about any of that. So no cryptocurrency questions, no cryptography questions, but cryptozoology questions, please send them Michael's way. If you have any hacking questions, you can feel free to address them to me or to both of us, of course, and we would be happy to answer them. But we like to take time during the week to take a look at the comments on the YouTube channel and answer them live. And of course, if you have any in the chat, we will answer them as well. I'm even going to do something I usually don't do, and I'm going to delve a little bit into my Twitter message requests, which is never never for the faint of heart, because a lot of questions are just like, I need you to hack my girlfriend now, or something like that.
Yes.
But I did find a couple ones in there that kind of touch on things that we've dealt with before, so I think I will be answering some of those. So great to see everybody in the chat. Senpai, of course, as well as Victor. I know that unfortunately Zam is not going to be able to join us today because he's off doing things. So pour one out for Zam. We miss you very much. So let's go ahead and get started today. One of the things that I wanted to... Oh, all right, Michael. Go ahead.
Started.
Well, all right, sure. Let's do one from the YouTube channel.
Actually, give me a second to pull it up where I can see it.
Okay.
Do whatever you're going to do.
So let's switch over to my screen then. This is on, again, in my message requests. I sometimes get questions from content creators who make hacking content themselves. So these are people who are just starting out, they're smaller channels, and then they get flagged by YouTube. They have a piece of content taken down. So this question just says, hey, I see you've had YouTube issues before. Suddenly they removed one of my videos from 2019. If you don't mind, I was curious, how did you end up dealing with them or getting content back up? Michael?
Sorry, I was reading. So basically it's about getting content back up.
Yeah, if you're a content creator who's making hacking content and it's educational and it's not like how to hack into Instagram right now to hack your girlfriend, then how do you get this content back up? Oh, Zam is here. I lied.
Any time your video gets taken down, you do have the ability to submit an appeal. So basically, you just need to go through that process, make sure that you use like educational content, and then you just need to very clearly explain why this is educational. And also, it's very important when you're filming the videos to make sure you stress that it's ethical hacking for education. And also, it's a good idea to like throw in defense mechanisms and stuff like that, so that it's very clear what you're doing. You got to remember, the majority of the moderators at YouTube don't know hacking. They don't know any of the minutia of like the difference between black hat and white hat hacking and any of that. So they're just gonna flag it and it's gonna go down. But if you submit the appeal, usually it gets to a person who's used to dealing with some of these types of things, because most people who do hacking videos just won't submit an appeal. So yeah, that's all you got to do.
Yeah, so I have a slightly different response to that. One of them is the title of your video really matters. That's probably the most important thing. If it's how to hack something, we have had over at Hack 5, we had how to hack Metasploitable. Do you guys know what Metasploitable is? It's a deliberately vulnerable system that's designed for you to hack it. It's literally there for you to hack it. It's safe and legal, and that video was taken down because some YouTube person saw how to hack and then something. They don't know what Metasploitable is, and they're just like, well, this seems bad. Like, why would we want to let somebody hack this poor Metasploitable? And they caused a flag which affected the whole channel. We weren't able to upload videos for a day, so we were thrown off our schedule because we have a lot of content we put up. So this happens to really big channels. At Nullbyte, we had tons of videos that would get this flag, and we would have to go back and we would have to change. We would have to change the title, most importantly, to look really benign. So we would go from how to hack to how hackers take advantage of XYZ to do XYZ. And of course, like, yeah, it's not going to be quite as like right to it with the title, but I find that if you're too bare bones with the title, like the YouTube censors don't get it.
Yeah.
Now there's a second part here, and this is, we have gotten to almost 800,000 subscribers on the Nullbyte channel. That I started that channel. The Hack5 channel's at like 700,000. I don't know if this is just true for them, but for us at Nullbyte, we never got like a play button when we hit like 500,000. No. We never got when we hit 100,000, 10,000. Like they, and I was like, why? Like, why do you, like, you've approved our videos, you've monetized them, so you're making money off of them. So like, what's up? And they wrote back that we do not think that your content is in line with our community, whatever, but we're not going to delete it because it's making us money. So, which is really weird, right? Like to have YouTube be like, hi, we have this like cutesy program for people that attract eyeballs and make us money, but like you're doing it, but like we wouldn't want to give you the thing because while we're making money off of it, we also don't like you.
Yeah, what I love is like
hard not to take it personally.
Yeah, basically we're in the like top 10 to 5% of creators, and then they're like, yeah, you're not good enough to get an award.
Well, it's about the content. So just know that like even when your content is accepted, we have straight up, after I directly asked them, we're told by YouTube that our content does not meet their community standards. Yeah. And we put a lot of work into it. It's certainly not because the content is like low production quality, and it's not because it doesn't get millions of views. It's because it's security content and they don't know what to do with it. So just be aware that like this will probably be an issue that crops up if you're a content creator, because it has for us. And we've really like it's just as bad on TikTok, but in different ways. So anytime you're creating content, you're going to run up against this barrier where the platform doesn't understand it and tries to like squish it. For example, if you were doing this sort of stuff on TikTok, 9 out of 10 times it's going to be taken down for harassment and bullying within the first week. And then if it's really benign stuff that like nobody could possibly misinterpret, even if they were incredibly dumb, then it might still get taken down for up to 6 to 7 days because somebody flags it for something that's not really a problem. Like, we did a video on Michael's computer fake exploding, and it got taken down for like teaching people how to hack, and we're like, we put a firework inside the computer, and this is a special effects scene. There's no real hacking.
This is like the lowest tech special effects.
Yeah. It was basically just like a funny little thing, and it was taken down for a week. And also, because another video had been flagged, we got struck out, so we couldn't upload anything for days. So just be aware that like other platforms, even if you upload benign stuff that's around hacking, do not understand it and will frequently censor it. So it's unfortunately part of it. We've been quite successful with this on multiple platforms, and we still get this sort of flag, and we're still not accepted by the YouTube community. So what are you going to do?
Okay. Did we want to go to the pre-prepared question?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so this was in regards to our Mr. Robot hacking reaction. I think it might be possible to explode a femtocell assuming it runs Linux by building a custom kernel and messing around with the frequencies of the hardware, or by adding a submodule to the hardware. That would literally be a bomb, but that would require some finesse to pull off. Do you have any reaction? I was also going to react to the femtocell thing.
Amateur. A real hacker would get on the supply chain and be the one to develop the femtocell, build a backdoor into the hardware module, or intercept it in transit, and then cause it to explode. So building reverse engineering, no, amateur.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, like this would require a ton of effort, and even so, like there's not enough. Like a femtocell gets plugged into the friggin' wall. There's no batteries. So you could short it out, but there's nothing in it, like even a LiPo battery, to explode. So like reverse engineering it to short itself out or maybe catch on fire, possible. But like there isn't the required material in the device to explode. So like,
well, when Mr. Robot said that, he might the character might have been Elliot, might have been being metaphorical.
He might have been high. We can speculate whatever you want. What he said was "or explode," and that's what I was taking away from it. So don't you make excuses?
Well,
for Mr.
I was going to
Robot.
say, I don't know. In theory, you could have like a portable femtocell that was battery powered. In which case,
but there wasn't one because the one on screen.
We're
was
just
plugged
being
into the wall.
hypothetically here.
Hypothetically, he could find a way to turn silicone into C4. Sure, Michael, but in practical terms, no. There's no way to do this.
Okay, onward and upward. just a possible subject I'd love to see you guys discuss in the future is the recent Pegasus zero-click exploit found by the Israeli government that affects all phones, including iPhones.
Yeah, okay. So there was recently an emergency update to iPhones that you might have seen, and they all they said is that, like it seems as though this might have been actively exploited, or we've received reports of it being actively exploited. They wouldn't really comment on much of the security of it, but it looks like there was an iPhone exploit that was like patched very recently, and it was related to this. So what is a zero-click exploit, Michael, versus for example, a one-click exploit, and why does that matter?
It's something that you don't have to click, obviously. So maybe like if your phone got a notification that, just by receiving the notification on your phone, it exploited it somehow. Or like by receiving a text, you got exploited or something like that. Whereas a one click might be something like you click on a URL link or you go to a certain website and it exploits. And then I guess, in number of clicks from there.
Right. So the reason this matters also is because this is the way it's sold to customers. So this group, the sketchy NSO group, would be like, hey, do you want a very rare special exploit that's, zero click, where it just automatically infects the person for a super high price? Because if we do too many of these, the technology that causes it to be possible will be shut down. Or do you want this other one that you can use as much as you want, that's much cheaper, that requires a single click, and you got to figure out how to trick the guy? And they're usually like, yeah, we'll do the one click, because, they don't, the price is probably ridiculous for the zero click. But what the zero click does is it abuses an MMS feature to automatically open a web page as soon as the message is sent to you. So rather than you opening it, it automatically opens it. And there's actually a lot of carriers that are shutting this down and disabling this feature and kind of interrupting this chain. But there's other ways that it's possible to do this if you know enough about different vulnerabilities in Android phones and iPhones. So so that's what the zero-click exploit was. It was something that would automatically force a website to be loaded, and that website had I believe it was like a WebKit vulnerability 0-day that allowed you to execute arbitrary code. And that's what the iPhone just patched a couple days ago. So there will probably be more information about this when we cover it on Friday, but I'm definitely going to go into it a little bit then, because anytime we see like a mysterious security update, I always like to find out like what it's for, especially if it's connected to something as juicy as NSO Group and Pegasus.
We have a very connected question, which was, hey, Cody, I'm a reporter in India. Recently, I found out basically, they found out about the Pegasus hack, and they want to know how to protect their phone or prevent that. I heard that they only need your phone number to hack your phone.
Yeah, well, again, it depends on what the price that your adversary has paid. If they paid for the zero click, then yeah, they just need your phone number. They send you the MMS message, it opens the thing, and then boom, your phone's infected.
And so would there be any way to prevent that? Like turn off your texts, I guess? Would that even work?
No. That's the point, is that there's not, by default, phones are vulnerable to this sort of thing. So, I mean, you're dealing with effectively like nation-state level malware here that is very sophisticated and very dedicated at targeting. You do have the interesting factor that it's more expensive to do the zero-click exploit. So, like, it's unlikely that you would be targeted by that as opposed to the one-click. But it would be much more likely that you would get an random text message with something that's specifically targeted to interest you. And what's interesting to me is that they don't use MMS spoofing. Like I would use MMS spoofing and like make it come from a person that seemed familiar. But in most cases, the journalists that were breached got a random message from a number they didn't recognize that had a link to something that they were interested in. And if you click that link, it would execute the malware. So it's much, much more likely that you're going to get some link that somebody wants you to click on. So if you want to prevent yourself from being infected, you can't do anything.
Hello, sir. I'm secret source. Please click this link to Google Docs.
Journalists get messages like that all the time, you know? Or more frequently, it's to a website that's infected. Or a phishing site that looks like a trusted website, like the BBC or something like that, that like is a news source that someone would want to follow up on, but it's actually a phishing page with malware on it. So, I would say the number one thing is don't click on suspicious links that are sent to you by numbers you don't recognize. And if a link looks suspicious and it's sent by someone you do know, I use Signal Messenger, so it would be a lot more difficult to impersonate someone on Signal Messenger because they would have to basically take over the account to do so. But if you're just getting an MMS message, it could be spoofed to be from someone you know. And that's what's really difficult. So if you're just using MMS, you're not using a secure messaging service, it's a lot easier to do this attack. So I would say like using Signal is a good way to authenticate, or some other messaging service like that is a good way to authenticate the user who's sending you the link. Because if you just get an MMS from your mom's number, it could be me spoofing your mom's number, sending you the link. And then if you get a random Signal message from some number you don't recognize with the link in it, don't click it. Or go to VirusTotal, like put into their link expander, look at where it actually goes, and maybe send it to someone like Citizen Lab, if you're a journalist especially, and show them that you've been sent this link and see if it maybe does have the malware.
Okay. Is it possible to track the very exact location from only IP address?
A question from our live users.
Yeah.
So no, it is not possible to, well, sort of.
Like how precise could you be?
So it's not possible to find like your house unless your house has its own like IP range. But
that would be crazy.
if you are doing something from your work or from your school, it's different. If you're doing something from your work or your school, you can absolutely find out the organization that that IP address is registered to. So just be aware that when I said like, oh no, they can just find your city, that's not always true. If you're in like a public library, that public library may have its own IP range, and you can find out that, you know, like it's coming from there. So like the specific like building in some cases. So that's really what's interesting, is you can get as specific as the building, but it's not going to be, it's going to be like a public building with a bunch of like, you know, like a lot more need for an IP range that's larger than like a home.
I was going to say, so is that difference also like if you have a static IP? So if you have a static IP, then maybe it can be more precise because like I know the way the ISPs work, generally for like residential use, you don't have a static IP, you have like a dynamic IP within that range that like, for lack of a better term, cell site has. So I wonder if you had,
It should still be regional.
Okay.
It should just still be a regional IP for your internet service provider, and not something for like you individually, even your unique IP address.
Okay. And then also, what is the importance of like concealing your MAC address? Okay.
So this is a good one. So recently I did some research on MAC addresses when it comes to Android phones. So currently, by default, if I'm trying to like track a device by its MAC address, an Android phone will now put out a different randomized MAC address for every different Wi-Fi network it attempts to connect to, or every Wi-Fi network it does connect to. So that means that it's not using like one unique identifier; it's dragging along with it all the time. It's become much more difficult to track a mobile device, for example, by its MAC address. Now, that being said, traditionally, showing your MAC address means that unless you're spoofing your MAC address, someone would be able to track any time that you are in range. That's rapidly changing by the way that different devices will change their MAC address to protect your privacy, but it's still a concern for people who are worried about anybody being in range being able to detect that you're nearby.
Okay. Why go for an individual instead of an organization?
For what?
That is the complete question.
You mean why do a phishing attack instead of or spear phishing attack instead of a general phishing attack?
Yeah, I guess that would be one way to interpret it.
So if you're going after an organization versus going after an individual of that organization, you can use things like data breaches to make it much more likely to know what that person is interested in. So, for example, if I take an email address, if I take a target at a company that's like an executive, and then I run their information to find all their social media accounts and their handles and their email addresses, and then I run those to find data breaches attached to them, I can find out what sorts of things they subscribe to, I can find out which accounts they have, and I might even be able to find things like passwords. If you've ever gotten one of those emails that's just like, I know your password, and like the subject of the email address is your password, sometimes scammers will basically use breach data to try to convince you they know more than they really do. And as a hacker trying to write a good phishing email, it's easy to use the same kind of data to basically provide context and make it so that it's much more likely that person will click on the link or interact with whatever kind of scam you're doing. So yeah, I would say going after an individual has way more information that you can use. You can really customize it, and you can also make it innocuous looking enough that you're unlikely to be detected. Whereas if you go after an entire organization, like, you'll have a higher success rate probably, but you'll also be discovered a lot more quickly.
And there's a person asking if we're going to do packet swirl hacking content, and we have already done that. I'm just trying to find the video for you now.
Oh, well, oh yeah, this is true. One thing that Victor just pointed out is there's a lot of devices that do not randomize their MAC addresses. So this is everything from like police body cameras to car Bluetooth stereos to like all sorts of other stuff. And this means that it is still possible to track people by the MAC addresses that do not change or do not randomize themselves that they carry around with them. Again, car stereos, headphones. Like, for some reason, like Bluetooth headphones never change their MAC addresses. So it's actually relatively easy to still track people via MAC addresses because not every address is being rotated. But the more easy to track things like Wi-Fi MAC addresses on your smartphone or on your laptop are rapidly being changed to be more secure by default. Now, there's other ways to reveal a particular device being in range besides just relying on its MAC address, but it is a super, super easy, very, very lazy way of doing so. But yeah, so and one of those is just determining, for example, like which other networks that device has joined before, and then building a fingerprint for it. So anytime it's in range, if it responds to the same fake networks, then we know, hey, it's the same device that's in range. So there's ways of getting around MAC address spoofing, but it's also a great way of tracking people and devices depending on whether or not they're changing the MAC address over time.
So do we want to go to the...
Do planes have IP addresses? Yes, they do. That's a really good question. Michael, do you want to talk about in-flight Wi-Fi?
Sure. I mean, multiple systems on a plane are going to have MAC addresses, but IP address. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, they're going to have a dynamic IP assigned either by a satellite provider or I forget the name of the system, but there is like a ground-based data link to aircraft. Some aircraft use a satellite-based system, some use a ground-based one. Either way, it's going to work just like a cell tower, where that site has an IP address, and that's what the traffic's being routed through.
Yeah, I love messing with plane Wi-Fi. I think it is so much fun because all the equipment is like really out of date, and it's like lots of people are using it. Everyone's bored. It's a very isolated environment.
It's very slow.
Yeah, it's very slow. So
maybe
like,
Starlink will fix that.
There's lots of stuff that you can do to like play around with the way the traffic flows and like see what's going on with airplane Wi-Fi. So if you're curious, it's a really interesting place to open up Wireshark and just see what's going on, because yeah, it's really weird. So we're talking also about defeating MAC address randomization or how you can track devices. There's a way that we covered in one of my presentations that is using a QR code. So if you can trick someone into scanning a QR code and saving a Wi-Fi or joining a Wi-Fi network, it will basically beacon that Wi-Fi network forever and always identify their device. It's like tagging them with the signal that their device is constantly going to be putting out. That's one way where if you can't rely on someone's phone to be putting out the same MAC address, you can have them join a hidden Wi-Fi network once, and until they go into their phone and delete that network, it will always...
Let's be honest, no one does that.
Which no one will do. They'll always be outputting that network name, be like, are you nearby? Are you nearby? And you can just track that and know when they're close. So there's tons of ways of defeating MAC address randomization and tracking people from their phones or their laptops. It's just that the coolest and simplest one, just watching the MAC address as it moves around, has been changed a bit because now it's spoofing it and making it harder to watch.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. The next question we had from the channel was, I would enjoy your thoughts on the Pwn phone for Mr. Robot.
I don't know about that.
I don't.
Sorry,
yeah.
Moving on.
Okay, fine. Like, I don't recall this scene, and I didn't.
Yeah, we haven't watched that scene yet, so we'll probably roll that as one of the scenes we react to. Stay tuned.
Yeah. So we might have another Mr. Robot hack hacking React video very soon. We just have to get some paperwork stuff done.
Yeah, so guess what? Every time we do one of these Hackers React video, every clip we use gets individually submitted as a violation, and our whole video gets taken down, and we have to submit individual claims for each one, and they have 30 days to respond.
Yeah.
So making these is a lot of fun in the moment, but then a ton of paperwork, and we have to write an individual appeal for each clip. So, and if any one of them say no, then like it means our video is totally blocked. So yeah, it's a little bit stressful to make this kind of content, but we really enjoy it. So if you guys like it, then we'll keep doing it. But yeah, stay tuned for another one. We have it uploaded. We just got to wait for all the appeals to go through, and then hopefully we'll be able to premiere it pretty soon.
Yeah. I think that's what this question was about too, is making more reaction videos. So anyway.
Oh, someone was asking about the Pine phone?
Pine phone? Was it the Pine phone? No, it's the Pone phone that the person asked about.
Oh, that's funny. Because there's a...
They might have meant the Pine phone, but I think it was the Pone phone in Mr. Robot.
Yeah, it's a great alliteration.
Yeah. Okay. Hold up, I got another. Okay, how many tools does Black Arch Slim have? And also, like, we can elaborate. Would you recommend Black Arch Slim?
I've not used Black Arch Slim.
I'm assuming it's just like this, the light download.
Oh, just the... I mean, Black Arch tends to have a lot of tools. Like, it's really, really, really rich with tools, and that's like one of the more notable things about it. So I mean, relative the actual number, I have no idea, but I would say more than
Google that for you.
More than Kali Linux, and probably on par with Parrot Security OS. Parrot Security OS also includes a lot of up and coming stuff, but I think Black Arch also includes a lot of old school stuff that like may or may not still work. But you will find it there in the repository if you want to find it. So
gotcha.
A lot.
Okay, we can skip a couple questions because we've already answered those. Okay, so this was in regards to the bad neighbor thing we did on Hack 5. Couldn't you just download Phishing first and check if any unauthorized device is on your network?
Yeah, but I can trick Phishing. If I want to, I can just change the MAC address of my device that I'm connecting, and I can spoof it to make it look like it's one of yours. So yeah, you can, but like if I just kick your printer off the network, I connect as the printer, and then like I'm just pretending to be the printer on your network, you're not going to know that I'm role-playing as your printer. Like, you know, if I really wanted to get in there and be an evil neighbor, and I had a little bit more knowledge than, you know, the average idiot, then, you know, I could probably make it a bit more difficult to use a tool to find it. Now, of course, if you were auditing it and you're like, why is the, like, okay, like, why are there no ports open on the printer? Like, that's a little weird. And then you were to, like, try to do direction finding and be like, why is the printer coming from next door? Then you would probably uncover something was up. But you would need to go through a couple steps first. And knowing someone was messing with your network, and then, yes, downloading Phishing and auditing your network would probably be a good way of testing it. But also, if you were using something like the de-auth detector and you were looking for de-authentication packets, or even just Wireshark, you would be able to see that somebody on your network was sending de-authentication packets and start looking at where they were coming from. So if someone was throwing rocks at your network effectively and kicking things off the network, you would be able to track that down pretty quickly just by looking for the source of those attacks.
Yeah. Okay, so another question we had here is, this person can't boot to Black Arch, so they were thinking of installing Arch and then upgrading to Black Arch, since I can boot to Arch. But what would I dual boot with? Any recommendations?
I'm sorry, just use Manjaro.
Arch is no.
Yeah, you can just go ahead and use like Black Arch with a GUI effectively, by using Manjaro. It's a great experience. I really like it. I also cannot answer your question, so I'm just gonna say don't punish yourself. If you're having a hard time with it, just play around with it in Manjaro until you're comfortable, and then if you really want to go back to Arch and like brag to your friends, you can already brag to your friends that you're running Arch because Manjaro is based on Arch, so there you go. But if you really also need to only use the terminal, then you can go back and punish yourself and do that too.
Yeah. Okay. How do you get motivation for hacking? Or how do you stay motivated?
You need to have wins. Like, you need to have like measurable progress and be able to do a couple things that you think are cool. That's one thing I think is very motivating and makes it easier to focus on stuff that's difficult or dry to learn. If you can maybe for me, it was like Wi-Fi hacking, learning how to get the password, being able to do it repeatedly and show that I'd really learned something was motivating. So I would say if you have anything that you're particularly passionate about that you can get like, a couple example projects so that you can get the experience of succeeding at like a cybersecurity thing, I find that to be very motivating and helpful because often the content can get very dry. So being hands-on, I would say, if possible.
Okay.
Where can I ask questions? Right here.
Yeah.
Just ask.
Just in the chat.
I see your
Just
question.
don't spam the questions.
Yeah, just don't spam the questions or you get banned.
I might get spiteful.
Yeah.
So, anyway, what are some of the things you can use a Raspberry Pi and Kali for?
You can use a Raspberry Pi and Kali for Wi-Fi hacking, often without even needing an external wireless network adapter, which is why I really, really like them. You can also use them to control your printer, your 3D printer with OctoPrint.
I don't know if that's a Kali use, per se.
Whatever. You can use the Raspberry. There's so many. Like I run Manjaro on my Raspberry Pi currently right now, and I'm about to do a security demo on it. It's like there's so many things you can do with the Raspberry Pi. If you just mean only using Kali, then like anything you can do with Kali Linux that doesn't require like intensive processing, you can probably do on the Raspberry Pi. Especially if it's one of the newer Raspberry Pis.
We also did a video on the Pi hole. It's a DNS sinkhole that you can put on Raspberry Pi. Pretty cool project.
Oh, we have a question for you.
Box.
Sorry, we have a question for you. Is dodo bird cryptozoology?
The dodo bird clearly exists and it used to exist. It just no longer exists because it was hunted to extinction.
Right. So then our follow-up sightings of its mythical reappearance are those considered
mythical reappearance? I don't think
really good question. Thank you for finally giving one to Michael.
I don't think that would be considered cryptozoology.
I'm going to disagree. I think that if an animal vanishes and then mysteriously reappears, but its status is mythical.
Okay, if there were claims that the dodo had reappeared, then those perhaps could be considered cryptozoology. Cryptozoology would typically refer to zoology, which is heated debate.
All right, moving on.
Okay.
So one person is pointing out the tool MacChanger on Linux works really well. It won't accept arbitrary input all the time, but you can let it pick a random MAC address and it works on Kali. So yes, if you want to disguise your MAC address, then MacChanger is a really good way to prevent other people from knowing what type of device you're using. What I use it for very often is spoofing a MAC address that's already allowed into a whitelisted or blacklisted wireless network. So what I mean is if you have like a captive portal at like, I don't know, on like an airplane or a hotel or like one of those things that like charges you for Wi-Fi, you could always, in theory, like just look at other devices that are already allowed in that have been added to the MAC address whitelist and just copy that MAC address and change your own to match it. At that point, you will look like that device. So you will look like that's the manufacturer of your device. And also you'll just magically have access to that Wi-Fi network because you happen to be able to, pass through the whitelist. So there's a lot of different uses for MacChanger, but that's one of my favorite ones.
Any free and open source network monitor tool?
Kismet. I really like Kismet. Kismet's a really, really cool way of seeing who's connected to what and kind of get a lay of the land for what sorts of wireless devices are near you, what is their history. I really like also that it will watch the history of a device. So it knows which other networks a device has joined or has permission to join, and it will build a profile on each device, including access points. So you can see if an access point is acting like suspiciously by like having a bunch of other like names that it's doing or switching channels. It's really good at being able to watch sorts of things like this and try to determine if there's like a malicious device nearby by having a bunch of automated alerts for suspicious behavior.
Yeah, and I would also say we did a video on pfSync. So if it is a network you control and stuff, then you can have a firewall and then use things like, I think you can have a Wireshark plugin on the firewall as well. So then you can just monitor all the network traffic, and then you could set up all kinds of intricate alerts and rules as you need and see fit.
All right, we got a question by Zuber. Other ways to hack Wi-Fi without using wordless or brute forcing? I got two for you.
Yeah.
So let's say that there's somebody who has a Wi-Fi password and it's crazy. It's like, their wedding song or something. It's just like really long. Okay, great. That's going to be really hard to brute force. So that's probably not going to work. There's two other ways that you can try to get into the Wi-Fi network that work pretty well. The first one is the WPS Pixie exploit. This is going to work maybe anywhere between, if routers are really updated in your region, it'll work about 30% of the time. If you're in an area with a bunch of old tech or that hasn't been updated in a while, we're looking at more like 70%, which can be really, really easy. Now, the WPS Pixie exploit relies on a really bad randomization in a key that's exchanged that allows you to basically just pluck the data out of it, which is really cool. So if you can run this exploit using something like AirGetIn, then you can often break into a Wi-Fi network in about 15 seconds. So when it works really quickly, and if it doesn't work, then you can move on to the next step. Now, the next step I would say would be Wi-Fi phishing. If you can disconnect someone from the network they were connected to and pop up a phishing page, then it's very often that the person just thinks the router is going through an update and will just put the password in.
Honestly, I feel like that's the most like bang for your buck one, because like otherwise you don't have to spend hours trying to crack a password or hash or something like that. You can just like get it in theory in seconds.
Yes. Yeah. So these are two different ways that you can get around the need to crack a password. Of course, one of them relies on the device being vulnerable, and the second one relies on a user being there interacting. So if you're trying to, phish the password from like a printer and like a Roku device and like, a security camera, you're not going to get any information. So while, a brute forcing attack allows you to take the hash and then attack it, there are other ways to be able to break in, and usually relying on someone being there or a vulnerability is your best bet.
Yeah. Hold on, I had a question here. What are some cool things a hacker can do with browser cookies?
You guys are answering each other's questions so well. Thank you.
That's what I love about this stream.
Yeah, I just have to say, literally my answer is going to be like, oh yeah, if you hit a filtered device, then you've hit a firewall. Try using, and somebody else already answered my questions. Thank you for that. That's why we love doing these. So for browser cookies, there is a black market of stolen cookies that allow you to log in to a website as someone until they expire. So that is one interesting thing you can do with cookies. And then, the rest is really tracking links for me. Do you have any thoughts?
That tracking links is kind of what I was going to talk about.
But that's not cookies.
Yeah. I know that you can. I'm not familiar with how it's done and stuff, but I do know that add tracking cookies and stuff can de-anonymize you and do things like that. That's one of the ways they could get around you using Tor, for example. But I'm not super familiar with all the intricate details of how it's used in that implementation.
All right, moving on.
Okay. I didn't have a question because you... I can go to one of the pre-prepared questions.
Yeah, do it.
Okay. Please do SSH honeypot. Okay.
Let's talk about the difference between FTP and SSH. So far, we have set up a ESP8266 based honeypot that pretends to be both a Wi-Fi router and an FTP file share. Now that is pretty easy because basically we're just providing access through a sort of API to a file structure. And that's all very standardized and doesn't need a lot of overhead because, we're just giving access to a file structure on demand. SSH is a little bit more. You're basically giving command line access to a system. So typically this would be a Linux system or some other shell, but there's no shell running on this little device. So in order to get SSH up, you basically need to be emulating some sort of system on the other end. So the reason that I haven't really tackled this yet is because providing access to a file system is one thing. Running Linux or pretending to run Linux on a little device like this is something totally different. So there actually is a project that I believe does enough emulation to let you do this, and I'm going to be trying it out and seeing if it works. It's a little bit tricky to set up, but I think it's still manageable enough that I'm going to try to show it off. But I would love to do this because I think the FTP example is really valuable and cool. But yeah, it's an order of magnitude more difficult when you need to have something on the other end aside from just a static file system that you can offer up when someone asks for it.
That would be really cool, but what if we just took a Raspberry Pi Zero or the 0W and showed how to run various honeypots on that? Because that would have enough horsepower behind it, wouldn't it?
I guess. And there, for that, I would just use the Canary token honeypot. So or Open Canary. So OpenCanary is a honeypot that includes SSH that runs on their Raspberry Pi. So that would be a good project for us to cover if you guys are interested in that sort of thing.
Yeah, that would be a pretty easy Tuesday stream.
I love this question. Is de-authing illegal?
Oh, that's literally what I was about to
pinpointed.
Yeah.
So this is such a good question. So I've had this debate with other researchers, but de-authing is a type of jamming that's called protocol-based jamming. So when we talk about jamming, traditionally people tend to think about the kind of jamming that's just blasting a very loud signal. It's like if I'm talking to Michael and then I just turn on a siren, then he can't hear me anymore and I've effectively jammed the signal. But that's not exactly how this works. Instead, we are using a protocol. So we're basically abusing a built-in function, a valid command, and we're spamming that protocol over and over and over and over, which is causing a valid response. It just has the side effect of disrupting the network while we're doing it. So this is a very different kind of jamming than what people think. So it's illegal to have a jammer, like something that actually does the yelling thing I mentioned, that puts out a very strong signal and denies other devices the ability to connect. That is illegal. But this is not what a de-author is doing. A de-author is sending targeted protocol messages to specific devices. So depending on who you're targeting, the answer gets a little bit more complicated. So let's say that we are targeting my device, my cell phone, and I'm kicking it off of a Wi-Fi network that I have permission to join. Is that illegal? I'm technically jamming. The answer is no, it's not illegal, and you are allowed to do this. Now let's say that instead I'm kicking my friend off of the school network. That actually is illegal if I don't have permission. And if I was kicking the teacher off of the school network, that would be definitely illegal. And you might actually be able to be pinpointed, which gets into answering the second part of this question. So when you are using something like this little D1 Mini, running something like the Wi-Fi de-author to send out these de-authentication messages, or a wireless network adapter doing the same thing, then yes, you can absolutely track this down. And we covered this using the Andromeda de-author, which has a directional antenna. So we were actually able to sweep around and we were able to see the exact direction that the signal was coming from, and we were able to take a couple steps and then sweep again. We were able to track it down very quickly. So if you're doing this sort of attack, it is very, very obvious. It's very easy to track down, and it is not something that is difficult for anybody that knows the smallest bit about IT to determine what is happening and who is doing it. Especially if you're not randomizing your MAC address, because that will lead them right to you. So, so yeah, it absolutely is illegal to do this against targets that you do not have permission to, because you're denying them service to something that they legitimately have a right to access. So effectively, it's like you're pulling the plug on their internet. It would be viewed as the same kind of crime, because they paid for a service and you are forcibly disconnecting them from it and preventing them from getting what they paid for. So, yeah.
I was going to say, I would also clarify that any radio source can be tracked. It's just a matter of a will and the amount of time. So like there's the RTL SDR Kraken. It's a coherent five SDRs tied together basically, and then it can give you an angle to a device. So then by just driving around, you can see, okay, it's got to be here. And that can be in any radio source. This is frequently done by amateur radio hobbyist hams. So yeah.
Okay, so this is a really interesting question that directly relates to the research I did today, so I'm going to choose to answer it. By the way, Surge43, you have excellent questions today, and I'm impressed. Is there a process to set up an evil twin wireless access point, or WAP, that captures the password that a client tries to send and stores it in the clear, or does the WPA implementation prevent that? That is a really good question. So right now, there's something called a half handshake attack. And what it means is if I, again, use this little D1 Mini to set up a fake access point that you have joined in the past, so your phone has a stored password inside of it for, for connecting to it. What I can do as a hacker is listen for your device being like, oh, I know that network, and sending the first half of the handshake. I can capture that hash and I can use it to brute force the password of the network that's not even there. So you could be, on vacation somewhere, halfway across the world. I create a fake access point from your company's office, and your phone would be like, oh, well, here's a hashed version of my company office password. And if I, the hacker, intercept it and that password's not so good, I can brute force it. So at no point is it exchanged in the clear, unfortunately. But if you are able to intercept that hash, then if you just have like AWS spun up with like some GPUs, you can spend like $5 to burn through 1 billion passwords and get the answer really, really quickly. So it's fascinating to me that you can actually harvest Wi-Fi credentials from nearby devices without even needing to be close to the Wi-Fi network that they've connected to in the past. You can still steal their secrets if you can crack them using the hash that they give up, but it's never stored in the clear. So it's still going to be cracking, and if they have a really, really long, really secure password, it still won't be practical or possible to do this. But if most of the Wi-Fi passwords you've joined have really terrible passwords, if most of the Wi-Fi networks you've joined have really terrible passwords, then it's pretty likely that a hacker would be able to extract that and figure out what your like home Wi-Fi network is. Or what the password to it is. And they would also be able to create a perfect clone of it and force your device to join it and manipulate it and do all sorts of spooky stuff.
Okay, so why no certs? These days, a lot of government companies ask for certs, at least in my country.
Why do we not have certs?
Yeah.
Bro, I work in marketing. That's why. Because I am a researcher, and most of what I do is highly specific to Wi-Fi research, involving OSINT, like different practices involving that sort of thing. So I don't do pen testing. That's not my day-to-day job. I do more designing attacks and then presenting them. So I've never had the need for certs because I haven't gone into the most technical part of the field. Like I'm not somebody that's writing reports every day and testing the security of businesses every day for money. Sometimes I'll just do it as I go about my day. But it's not something that makes me more appealing in my job. For me, creating content makes me more appealing. So making a Hack 5 episode or something is probably a better use of my time than getting a cert for me. Now, if you're breaking into the industry, you don't have experience, and you want to show an employer that you're ready to get into an entry-level position because you know these certain things, a lot of employers don't have a good process for feeling out what kind of real-world experience you have. So they're a good way of communicating that right off the bat. I did not have the money back in the day to get certs because they are sometimes expensive. And again, I wasn't getting into a part of the industry where I needed certs. I needed knowledge. So I went back to community college and I did Python, I did C++, and I did I did a routing and switching certification, which I failed, but still learned enough that my job became more valuable. So,
and to be fair, I think like the YouTube videos definitely helped you in some of those situations. Like, I think having something that you can point to that demonstrates your knowledge is really the important part. Whether that's previous job experience and references, certifications, or YouTube videos, or just some demonstration of that knowledge. Okay, 8-Bit Oni had a question. What is a good device to boost Bluetooth signals, or a good way to connect to Bluetooth long range? So I was going to say Bluetooth 5.2, I think, supports up to like 300 meters, but that's really only if you're designing a device or you have access to devices with that. The other thing is if you can use an external antenna, then it uses 2.4 gigahertz. It's just like Wi-Fi. So any 2.4 high decibel gain antenna will be good. You could also, in theory, use a 2.4 gigahertz amplifier. But yeah, unless it explicitly supports that, I mean, just use like Wi-Fi or some other protocol. Or you could look into like LoRa or one of those.
The question
was
about Bluetooth.
Yeah.
All right. So one question is, we can hack Instagram? No, we cannot hack Instagram. I mean, is it possible to hack Instagram? Yes, of course. But anytime we focus on social networks, for one, like why? Like usually it's just like hack my girlfriend or something dumb like that. It's like, or like a personal dispute. Instagram is not usually the point that hackers use to break into a corporate network and take down like a bunch of important stuff. Like, if you are personally hacked through a malicious person that knows just enough to take over your Instagram account, like that is not like a job you would get in cybersecurity. That's like a problem you're having that probably the police would be better suited to deal with.
Yeah.
And like we don't necessarily support like hacking back or getting involved in like more personal things. So it's just social media gets us taken down and banned by YouTube. So that's one thing. Anytime we cover it, we get taken down. So it's not worth
previous rant about YouTube.
Yeah. And then second, like the kinds of attacks that like breaking into Instagram tends to be about is personal stuff. And like that's like totally outside the scope of educational cybersecurity. Give me an example, prove me wrong. But like most of the time we get a question about Instagram, it's like somebody hacked my Instagram, or I want to hack this Instagram that I can't prove belonged to me, but trust me, it was mine, and now I want you to help me get it back, which is like, who knows? Like, or like something bad happened to my family and I need to hack this person back. I'm just like, that sounds like a very stressful thing to do. Like, you know, like to try to defeat someone in like a hacker duel. Like, oh my God. Like, so that's not really something we do and answer. But if you can think of a practical use case that won't get us taken down, I would appreciate that. So another question we got that I really like was, the moment I'm a teacher, I teach high school students to get into cybersecurity, but I want to switch because I really love pen testing. So I'd love to join a company as a junior. Honestly, having teaching experience is really, really helpful because reports are basically getting people who don't understand the fundamentals here to understand what you're telling them and understand the value in it and what you're supposed to do. And most people absolutely lack those skills. They come in with hard technical skills. They don't have any soft skills for dealing with people or explaining things or explaining technology. So like if you can lean into your experience you've had in other careers to give yourself an advantage in cybersecurity, especially with presenting, especially with teaching, especially with reports and being client facing. There's a huge problem with having pen testers who are not client facing. That meaning they say weird stuff, like, or they like embarrass the company by being weird. So if you can be presentable, if you can learn to do good presentations, make people not feel dumb, but make them feel empowered with your presentations and make them feel like they have options, then you will be a rock star in cybersecurity. Because there's not a lot of people that have those like cross skills.
Yeah, I was going to say, and kind of expanding on that, if you still do enjoy teaching, then there's a lot of opportunity to take that into the corporate side of things. So you could go around and provide security trainings and do those sorts of things. Or maybe, I don't know if marketing would be the right department, but there are parts of these corporate security companies that are oriented towards education and training. We have a whole department at Varonis about that, right? Like, so you can definitely combine your love of cybersecurity and education.
Yeah, but if you just want to get into straight up pen testing, because like our job is a little bit of both. Like I'll do research into exploiting devices and stuff, and I'll submit it and then get to present it. So if you want to get into something that's just pen testing, you're just like I don't want to do like teaching. I want to do just pen testing. I like breaking computers. Some of these certifications are flashcards. Like they're like they don't teach you how to break stuff. They basically just show that you can pass like a series of multiple choice questions about domain knowledge. Sometimes that's what people are looking for. Sometimes people want to know that you can perform and would prefer to see you doing a CTF or like producing a piece of content online that other people find useful. Like all those things have been good gateways into getting into a job where maybe I don't know everything, but I want to learn, and showing people that I already have enough value that I'm trainable, or I'm going to be very, very focused because I'm already doing it on my own. A lot of these companies, like they get people who are kind of shunted through this like process, they graduate and they're not really that passionate. If you are passionate about this, let people know. Like it really helps to employ people that want to learn about this and that want to do the extra mile in order to get good at this. And if you already feel like you're amazing by the time you get hired, a lot of the time, like, employers don't see that as someone who's going to go the extra mile to stay current and make sure that they learn all the new stuff and make sure that they're thorough. So just some advice with that. Certifications can be helpful. I just don't have any, and I've still managed to get a job. But I will admit that, like, I don't work in the most technical part, but some of the certs are just flashcards.
Helium mining is very interesting.
No. Oh wait, no, sorry. That's cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
This is a cryptozoology
I would like to
expert.
see more privacy.
No.
Implemented.
He doesn't know anything about crypto whatever. Just keep it to mythical. Keep it to mythical animals, my friends. Cryptozoology expert, not cryptocurrency. Nice try.
Yeah.
I am so sorry, Michael. It's like they don't understand your passion.
Yeah, exactly. There was favorite Linux desktop environment and text editor.
Oh my gosh, you were trying to start a fight, Michael. You go first.
No, you started this.
No, I didn't. You ranted
about my crypto stuff.
Okay,
so.
sure. I'm going to go with Nano, very safe choice. And I'm going to say desktop environment. Like, I still like Manjaro. I get to brag about using Arch. It has all the tools that are included in Black Arch, which is a great distro. I use Kali a lot still, but I find for just like I can game on Manjaro, weirdly enough. Like, it like runs some of my like games that I like to play. So I don't game on Kali Linux. It just feels like more of a slim, lean, like nice operating system to use for a daily driver, but it has all the security stuff that doesn't feel bloaty. So, you know, like it's kind of take your pick. I got a little bored with Debian because I've been using it for such a long time. I wanted to try something new. So I like Manjaro. I highly recommend it if you haven't tried it out. We have a video on using it. Michael, your turn.
I use Parrot Security OS.
When was the
and
last
Nano.
time? When was the last time you booted up Parrot Security OS?
I claim the 5th.
Okay. Plead, but all right.
I plead the 5th. It's one of those. Okay, let's wrap up the questions we had from...
Oh, yeah, we got like 5 minutes. So, all right, power round, you guys. Get in your questions right now. And again, if you do not get your question answered, and it's a good question, then make sure to put it on our YouTube channel because we check it every week. We make sure to answer all the questions in this segment. And yeah, man, I also really appreciate everybody in the chat that actually answering questions we haven't gotten a chance to answer. Your answers are actually great, and I couldn't do better myself on most of them. So really appreciate that.
Be sure
and,
to
you guys
drop
are awesome.
questions in the chat right now, and then if at the end of the stream we haven't gotten to them, drop them in the comments, and that's where I get these from. Are malicious Excel files, do they work on Android? Or could they work on Android?
Huh. No. Maybe?
I mean, you would have...
you would have to have, like, an exploitable or, like, a program with, like, permission to do a bunch of shenanigans on your device.
Maybe if it was, like, a Google Sheet and you had an exploit for Google Sheets that worked on Android.
No, because that's a cloud. That's a cloud. That's not running on your device. So, like, it wouldn't have privileges to, like, you know, escalate. So, no, you would need to have, like, you would need to open it in, like... something that could run macros on your Android. And my feeling is that, like, the PowerShell macro would, like, be for PowerShell, which doesn't run on Android. Yeah. So, like, I'm intrigued by your question. I literally have never even thought about this before. But, like, my tentative answer would be, like, no. Unless something was, like, because, like, by default, I don't know what Android opens, like, you know, like those sorts of files in, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't allow macros to be enabled. Yeah. And if it did, they definitely wouldn't be PowerShell macros. So you would have your work cut out for you to make this work, but I mean, follow your bliss. Who knows?
Okay, and the final pre-prepared one we have is, what about PDFs? Is there a similar exploit to macros for PDFs?
Almost definitely, but it's going to be more rare because anything that deals with PDFs is going to have much more scrutiny because it's a very, very common attack. I won't open PDFs from like randos. Like it's on my mobile device. Like I know not to do that. So sometimes they just find like errors in the way that these sorts of things handle stuff, and they're able to crash an operating system or crash a process and arbitrarily inject code. That's that's spooky. So yeah, I would say that. Any file could potentially contain malware. PDFs are a little bit more likely to contain malware, I would say, than like some other types that you can inspect the text of. But you just got to be careful in general. Can you guys do ransomware that encrypts data? Yeah, we did. We did. It's actually one of the video we already did. I challenged Michael to write Python ransomware with me, and mine was so much better than his. Go take a look. I used like public private key cryptography and had like exfiltration, and Michael just used like a password.
That's untrue. I like emailed
Go ahead and watch the video. It's great. Yeah. You can see everything. I used like a canary token to like sneak out like the key and like do all this other stuff. It was very entertaining. Oh my gosh, we have a question for you from Nine. Which is most likely to exist, the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, or the Chupacabra?
Okay, I mean, we know Nessie is real, right? Like, there's photographic evidence.
Confirmed, right?
Okay, so that one's confirmed. Chupacabra, maybe. I mean, and then what was the third? Bigfoot? Like, Bigfoot's undisputable, right? Like...
Oh, no, we lost Victor. All right, we're going to move on. Which programming language is your favorite?
Python.
I really like Python. Like,
it's
frankly,
very approachable.
It's very forgiving of mistakes and laziness. C++ is better for learning about how computers work and being able to work on microcontrollers. But there are some things like CircuitPython or MicroPython that allow you to use Python on microcontrollers as well, although somewhat clumsily and not with as much precision as C++ does, but also with a lot less to remember. So, yeah, I would say that. I think that's most of our time today, and I don't see any questions that I can answer quickly because SS7 is complicated.
Okay, Wi-Fi antenna. Which do you recommend? Directional.
Directional Wi-Fi antenna you recommend, or do you use outdoors? Great question. So we got really lucky, and we were given one of the dual band, so 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz directional Yagi antennas from Simple Wi-Fi. We've also been really lucky to receive a bunch of equipment from Alpha Wi-Fi that includes directional equipment. I really like the Yagi antenna, though. It's super cool. So if you go to like simplewifi.com or just Google Simple Wi-Fi, you can find the Wi-Fi. It's in like a sealed tube, so it can be outdoors. It's just such a cool concept. And the fact that we've gotten like 5 miles plus of range with it before and documented that is pretty crazy.
Short answer, if size matters, get the Yagi. If you need distance, get the parabolic grid antenna.
Oh yeah, so if you need absolute distance and you want a laser beam, then you can we were also given a giant parabolic antenna by Alpha Wireless.
It's like
it is huge, and the range is just ridiculous. So if you I think we have a scene in like one of our earlier videos of how far can Wi-Fi really travel, where we're just sitting in a graveyard with this giant parabolic antenna scanning people's houses like across the hills, and like it's like you're in their yard.
Yeah, go to the first videos that we did on the channel, and you'll see that. It goes really far. It can limit you to 2.4 gigahertz because that one travels farther, but I'm not going to get into the weeds there. Anyway. Been a great show.
It's been a great show. I want to thank everybody in the audience. We've hit 100 comments super early today, and that's always exciting. And also, I just appreciate all of your thoughtful questions. It's really fun to test our knowledge and also explain stuff and get ideas for future upcoming episodes. So again, if you didn't get your question answered, or if you're watching this on replay, make sure to leave a comment at the bottom of the video so we can get to it next week. Because I think we're going to do this segment more often. It's super fun, and honestly, it's very relaxing for us to do this on Tuesdays rather than have to have like a piece of content all ready to go. So yeah, all right, that's going to be it for this week. If you want to check out more great Varonis content, make sure to check out the Varonis brand channel, where you can find Threat Update, where our co-host Killian goes over how real companies are reacting to cyber attacks. And that's going to do it for us. We'll see you next time. Bye.